You hear about these investment deals, the ones promising really big returns, and it sounds tempting, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That allure is strong.
But what if, underneath that shiny promise, there are some pretty serious hidden risks?
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah, because you, our listener, you flagged a really concerning situation, this whole network around Billy Jackson and his high-risk loan note schemes. So our aim here is to, get beyond just the name Billy Jackson. We want to really understand who the key players are, what the connections look like, and maybe figure out the underlying issues.
Absolutely. And what your information brought to light, it isn't just about one guy operating solo. It's a whole web, really. Interconnected businesses, individuals.
Right.
We're going to be looking at that whole ecosystem that kind of makes these operations tick. The people bringing investors in, the trustees who are supposed to be looking out for them.
One's meant to protect them, yeah.
Yeah. And the administrators running the show day to day. And frankly, the evidence you shared, it points towards a pattern we unfortunately see quite often.
Which is?
Defaults on payments, companies hitting the wall, liquidation, and, significant unpaid debts piling up.
Yeah, and that core question, the one I know you're thinking, because we definitely are, is how? How did one person convince so many people to put money into what seemed like pretty troubled ventures?
And who else is involved? Who's in this web with him?
Right. Okay, let's start unpacking this. Billy Jackson himself. Now, from what we've gathered, he doesn't exactly seek out the limelight, does it?
No, seems to avoid it mostly.
Yeah.
We understand he even declined our invitation to comment. It said he was traveling, I think, after his listener got in touch.
Which is interesting because you contrast that sort of desire for privacy, maybe, with some very public appearances we have seen.
Like that photo with Rachel Buskell from New Capital Link.
Yeah, and that polished picture that just popped up on the Verdant Global website.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what's the strategy behind these carefully chosen moments?
Mm-hmm. And the fact his home address in Chesterley Street, shared with his wife Tracy, it's right there on company's house filings. Public record.
Which your source pointed out, raises questions, doesn't it? Is it about looking open, or is it, part of building a specific kind of image?
Gives you pause.
Definitely. So let's look at the companies directly tied to him, because a pattern seems pretty clear.
Yeah, names like Platinum, Northumberland Living,
West Chevington, Southbrook Gas, Aventurine, Verdant, WH 2022 Limited.
A whole list. And the common thread, they all seem to rely heavily on these loan note investments.
Right, and it feels like the same story repeating. Investors are promised these big returns, but, those promises seem to get broken a lot.
And this is where we start seeing some serious red flags waving.
Like the defaults.
Exactly. The fact that both Platinum and Northumberland Living have already defaulted, failed to make interest payments, failed to repay the original investment when it was due, the redemption payments, that's a huge issue.
Yeah, for the people who put their money in, that's not just like financial jargon. That's real money. Real stress.
Huge anxiety. It immediately makes you question how stable these companies actually are, how they're being managed.
Absolutely. And then you look at Southbrook Gas Generation Limited. That one really jumps out.
Wound up by court order.
Right. Forced to close down back in November 2024 after HMRC got involved.
And for anyone listening who isn't familiar, HMRC is the UK tax authority. When they take court action like that, it usually means serious unpaid tax debts.
A major sign of financial distress. Plus, there was a debt charge from the Welsh Revenue Authority and county court judgments, CCJs over £12,000.
So multiple signs of deep financial trouble there. A CCJ is a formal court order to pay a debt, remember?
Okay, so connecting the dots. Southbrook Gas sold its gas peaking facility to WH 2022 Limited.
And WH 2022 then rebranded, didn't they? It became Aventurine Climate.
Right. So Aventurine is out there presenting this green, sustainable image, trying to get new investment for eco projects.
But it's directly linked back to a company, Southbrook Gas, with this clear history of major financial problems.
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? Should definitely make potential investors stop and think.
And it's not just a one-off, is it?
No, not at all. Look at the list of court judgments against the other companies linked to Billy Jackson. Platinum Assets and Developments owed over £61,000.
Northern Business Management LLP, nearly £50,000.
Northumberland Luxury Stays. Northumberland Living Alnwick, smaller amounts but still judgments. And Platinum Energy Solutions over £37,000 owed, and now it's been wound up too. Forced into liquidation.
So yeah, it's not just one bad apple. It looks like a widespread pattern. Multiple companies within this network facing significant financial issues. It's not a blip. It's a recurring theme of substantial debt.
So to directly answer your concern, listener, about trust and whether your money is safe in ventures like these, well, these are very, very serious indicators. They should absolutely raise doubts.
Which brings us to a really key question. How do these operations keep attracting money, keep getting investment with all this going on in the background?
And that's where these other players come in, right? The ones you might call enablers.
That's a good way to put it. These are the individuals, the companies that kind of lend an air of legitimacy, maybe professionalism, to Billy Jackson's ventures, whether they mean to or not.
Okay, so first up, New Capital Inc., NCL. Our source says they were really active promoters of Jackson's loan notes, across different products, too.
Mm-hmm. And apparently there were enough, let's say, inconsistencies in how they operated that the source raters actually did separate blog posts just on NCL.
Right. So, listener, if you want to dig deeper there, searching online for New Capital Inc. specifically might be worthwhile.
Then we've got Sonali Craddock from Intelligent Distribution Limited and Mark Kidd of Alpha Trustee Services Limited. Now, the source flags their shared history.
At the High Street Group.
Yes, which, as many people will remember, collapsed, leaving investors with huge losses. That shared past is certainly something worth looking at closely.
Definitely. And Sonali Craddock's situation now is interesting. Her company website, her LinkedIn profile, both seem to have recently vanished.
Yeah, disappeared, which tends to raise eyebrows.
And the detail about her previously asking to have her name removed from a blog post, which ironically just drew more attention to her, it really highlights how important transparency is here.
Absolutely. And her background marketing roles at High Street Group, then marketing director for Billy's Platinum Companies. Plus, she actually signed official documents for Northern Business Management, LLP.
So, clearly, direct involvement in the operations, not just on the sidelines.
No.
Yeah.
Then there's Mark Kidd and his company, Alpha Trustee Services. Now, the trustee in these schemes, they're meant to be the guardian, right? Safeguarding the investor's interests, overseeing the security.
That's the crucial role.
And Mark Kidd himself signed loan note paperwork. He's now the sole shareholder and director of Alpha. That puts him right in the hot seat, responsibility-wise.
And it gets even more concerning when you see how Alpha became the trustee. They took over from another firm, Castle Trust and Management Services.
Which is now in liquidation itself.
Right. That handover alone might suggest some underlying issues or instability even before Alpha stepped in.
But the really shocking part is the previous involvement of someone called Tony Insall with Alpha.
Okay.
He resigned after being convicted for possessing indecent images of children, placed on the sex offenders register.
Wow. Okay.
As the source rightly says, that is a major red flag when you're talking about someone involved in a company handling significant financial responsibilities.
A massive understatement. Wow. It really makes you question the due diligence, doesn't it? The checks being done on people in these vital roles of financial oversight.
It certainly does. What kind of scrutiny was applied?
Exactly. Now, another name popping up is Charles Green from a company called iDiverse.
Ah, yes. Promoting unregulated investments in a venturing climate.
That's the one we trace back to the troubled Southbrook gas. And look, he shares company directorships with Sonali Craddock under that intelligent distribution name.
Okay. It just shows how interconnected this network seems to be. These individuals keep linking up.
It really does. And we should also talk about Irene McKenzie.
Head of Investor Relations. Sounds like a key contact point for investors.
Yeah, potentially the main face of the operations for them. Apparently she used to handle admin for Intelligent Distribution Limited, and now says she works only for Billy Jackson.
Which really underlines how central she is within this particular structure.
And her background, or at least what was on her old LinkedIn profile, things like fraud detection at Lloyd's Bank, roles in legal compliance.
That's the kind of CV that could absolutely give investors a sense of confidence, right? Credibility, trustworthiness.
For sure. But when you place that against everything else we've uncovered, well, you have to question the actual level of genuine oversight and protection that's really there for investors.
So if we just pull back for a second, look at the structure. You typically have these key roles in an investment scheme, don't you?
Right. The trustee, the introducer, the administrator.
The trustee is meant to secure the investment. The introducer brings in the money. The administrator handles the day-to-day stuff.
Okay. So in this network.
Well, Mark Kidd, via Alpha, seems to be the trustee. Sonali Craddock, with her marketing work, acted as an introducer. And Irene McKenzie looks like the key administrator.
And putting that all together, that structure, that seemingly professional setup with people in defined roles.
Exactly. As the source points out, that's what helps these schemes look legitimate, at least on the surface. to potential investors.
But the real test, surely, is what the investors themselves actually experience.
Absolutely. And the feedback we're seeing directly from them, well, it paints a very different picture from, a smooth, high-return operation.
Yeah, we found that quote on Trustpilot, dated April 1st, 2025. Pretty blunt.
What did it say?
The MD, Billy Jackson, makes promises he doesn't keep, goes on about big delays in payments, broken promises, and then adds, Irene McKenzie isn't much better for being helpful.
Ouch. That's strong criticism from someone dealing directly with them.
And there's a Google review, too, from April 2025 about Northumberland Living Limited. Just as worrying.
What's the gist? An investor saying straight up they haven't been repaid money owed to them. They explicitly say they suspect it's a scam and want to warn other people.
Yeah, that really drives home the point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're not just talking numbers on a spreadsheet here. These are real people facing potentially serious financial losses and feeling like they need to sound the alarm.
It underscores the very real human impact of these situations.
So as we wrap up this particular deep dive for you today, listener, it feels important just to restate what we try to do here.
Yeah, our mission is really about providing fact-based reporting on these high-risk investment areas, especially in property, because as we've clearly seen today, the glossy marketing, it can be miles away from the reality on the ground.
We've tried to dig into the company ownership details, the legal records, people's past conduct, just to give a clearer picture of what might be happening behind the curtain.
And look, if you, our listener, are maybe thinking about similar investments right now, or perhaps you're in a position where you think you might be owed money by any of these companies we've talked about,
There might be help.
well, our source provided a direct contact email for potential assistance. It's investigations@insolvencyandlaw.co.uk.
Okay, that's investigations@insolvencyandlaw.co.uk.
Good to know. And this isn't the last word on this, is it?
No, definitely not. Our next deep dive, we plan to take an even closer look, a more detailed breakdown of Billy Jackson's entire company portfolio.
So more to come. Definitely stay tuned for further insights and I suspect probably further revelations on this one.